Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast. Presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Josh with MitsuTimes. Today my guest is Kyle Gottschalk. He has the 2G with the big spoiler on the back. I'm sure you've seen at the shootout this year. It's a big eye catcher. How you doing today, Kyle?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's good to talk to you. I talk to a lot of drag racers, so it's good to get to talk to somebody who not just does autocross, but you were in the max effort, so you kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it was fun time.
Heck yeah. So tell us about the setup on your 2G.
Yeah, so some people probably know it used to be a red Eclipse, actually, and then just this past year, or past couple of years, I've been swapping parts over to the new black car, the Eagle Talon.
Okay.
So, of course, all-wheel drive. It actually started life as a front-wheel drive car, and then I did a all-wheel drive swap on it. So it's a 2.3 stroker from Buescher short block, stock heads, GSC S2 cams, valve springs, all that good stuff. 68 HTA, V2
nice.
turbo. Yep. So that's it was a little laggy on my buddy's 2.0, but it's working out good on the 2.3.
Good.
With the extra air. ECM link, nothing fancy there. 1000cc injectors. Currently just stock intake manifold, stock exhaust manifold. Volvo electro-hydraulic power steering pump.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I seem to have found a weak link with the stock power steering pump, so yeah, gave me all kinds of trouble. I got, of course, Paul Volk, probably half of his control arms, solid subframe bushings, which are awesome, rear diff bushings, all those work great. Bobby Gold is a FIBA UK, so got a bunch of his control arms, bump steer kit. Haven't put that on yet. That'll be a little off-season project. Feel 442 coilovers. Those are great. There's some pretty high spring rates on them. 17 by 10 RPF ones. Little 275 Hoosier A7 is my normal setup. Of course, the wing. Pretty good sized wing, a splitter that I made. Got a fuel cell in it. Some weight loss stuff. The minimum weight for my class is about 2910. So apparently trying to make it as light as possible and then get all that weight into the rear if I can. Evo 8 rear LSD, stage 3 TRE transmission, bought used. Been working good so far. So
Heck yeah.
Yep. That's a quick little rundown.
So Kyle, did you start with autocross or did you start with a 2G and make it autocross?
So I did start with the 2G. Basically, yeah, in college I had freshman year I had a 99 Honda Civic EX, got into an accident and pretty much didn't have anything until senior year when I got the GSX.
So what is it that made you chose the what was it that led to the 2G platform?
I don't really remember, but I'm sure like a lot of people, even though they probably don't want to admit it, it was probably good old Fast and Furious movie. But yeah, I mean, when I didn't have a car for those few years in college, I just remember somehow I found my way to, shout out DSMtuners.com. Definitely wouldn't be here without them. But yeah, I was just browsing around on there for a long time, and then I finally found one in West Virginia where I was going to school at. And I got it.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you did. So how did you work your way from that to being so involved into autocross?
Yeah, so honestly, when I graduated school graduated college is when I got the car. And then I moved to Kentucky, and I had no idea what autocross was. I didn't even know it existed. And just happened upon it one day. I was driving my car around town, and they were doing autocross in the EKU, Eastern Kentucky University parking lot down in Richmond, Kentucky. And I was driving by, and I broke my neck real hard looking over there. So I was driving around the parking lot. Yeah, it was wild. And then, just pulled into the parking lot, and I was like, hey, what is going on over here? And hooked ever since.
Heck yeah. So is this car that you have now, this obviously isn't the one that started it so many years ago. What was the car like now, like when you bought it?
Yeah, so the red car, the one I originally had when I got it, it didn't have anything in it. Stock suspension. I think it had a the classic 16G with a stock ECU, running stock boost.
Yeah.
I don't think it had no suspension mods. At one point, I put a subwoofer box in it. And then this black car, I bought it as basically it had everything besides an engine.
Okay.
From a guy for $500.
Heck yeah.
We're in Louisville, or I think Indiana.
I was gonna say you can't trust them Louisville cars. So what different setups have you worked with over the years that led up to the 2.3 and the HTA 68, like you said you have now?
Yeah. So it started off with the original red car with 16G. Put some I think they were Evo injectors and 880s. Turned the boost up. That was fun. Open dump. O2 housing,
yeah.
Which then had to be taken off because it was too loud for autocross. But yeah, so it started off with 16G stock cams, and then Evo 3 16G, and then it went to, then I put 264 HKS cams in it. That was a fun little on the setup on the 2.0. Let's see what else. Then really, it stayed on 93, probably 20 psi boost, and the suspension mods started. Of course, a set of sway bars, and I think it had lowering springs on it. Was just sway bars alone made such a huge difference. Of course, for somebody who had no experience, right? But, yeah. Then coilovers came, and pretty much it's always been stock manifold, intake and exhaust. Then from the 16G, I ran the 16G, and then I went up to E85 with 1000cc injectors on the 264s. That was a really potent setup. And then, of course, I had spun a rod bearing at Autocross Nationals in 2019.
Of course.
Yep. And so that's what sparked this whole rebuild. And then, black car, 68 HTA. My buddy had this 68 HTA V2. It was a little laggy for him on the 2.0 with stock cams. And so he got the V3, which is great. And then, so we just had the V2 laying around and kind of stole it. Borrowed it for an extended period of time.
There you go.
But yeah.
It's just yours temporarily.
Yep.
So, Kyle, we don't see too many people autocross in the 2G. I've gone to a bunch of events, never participated, but I don't recall seeing any DSMs at all except for at the shootout. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of getting your 2G into autocross if somebody out there has a 2G and they kind of want to get into it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, naturally, 4G63 is a strong little engine. All-wheel drive is nice, but even if, your front-wheel drive, it's still, won't be too bad. Naturally, there's some drawbacks, but a lot of the newer cars, you got all the fancy electronics and diffs, and there's not really, there's none of that on a DSM. So it's kind of nice that everything's a little more mechanical. But yeah. And then as far as the weaknesses, I would say like what I've found now that I'm kind of maxing it out is the weight distribution.
Okay.
Currently, I'm like 60 or 58% in the front, and then in the back it's roughly 40%. So I'm going to try and fix that since I'm at my minimum weight. But the chassis rigidity. So the front, they make they've got fender braces just for when you lift up the front of the car underneath that cross member there. You get a little bit of bend from where the windshield meets front of the car. Yeah, so it's can be a little weak there, but. And I actually went from the red car had a sunroof, and then this black car doesn't have a sunroof. So that was another little upgrade that I did.
Okay.
I guess getting into autocross today, right? I mean, everything on the car is probably old, a little worn out. So things like your bushings and all those rubber bushings, you turn the wheel, it's got to go through every rubber bushing in the car first before it gets to the tire. So you really got to make sure all that stuff's nice and tight. And then the one major thing that at my level I'm finding is that stock power steering pump. It doesn't appreciate the high RPM, quick back and forth like you would in a slalom. With the grip that I've got, it's it didn't want to cooperate, and it kind of cuts out at high RPMs, and I can't exactly have that happen. So that's why I swap it over. Other than that, I mean, it's really not. It's a nice, solid car. When they first came out, they were in the stock classes. There were all kinds of them, people racing them. Like Sam Krause was running one, STH. He won that class nationally in, I don't remember what year it was, in the last few years. And of course, if you guys don't know Dennis Grant, Autocross to Win, he had the black street mod DSM that was honestly probably the reason I'm where I'm at right now is because all the info he's got.
Huh.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Club Spec Custom Designs. They pride themselves on providing the highest level of customer service and satisfaction with their innovative designs and quality. They guarantee that you will be amazed with the results that will be produced. They are providing quality products for your Mitsubishi Lancer Rally Art, Mitsubishi Evolution 10, or Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. Check out all their products at clubspecchicago.com.
So, Kyle, you think looking back on it, you would still pick the 2G and as your autocross platform?
Yeah, I think it is kind of nice because they're relatively simple. Evo, of course, is an Evo, and it's a strong car and got all your fancy diffs and transfer cases and things like that. But I mean, so far, like where I was at last year at Nationals, I think I'm within range, maybe. So I think this year should be pretty interesting.
Heck yeah. So, Kyle, what is it about the 2G platform that makes you want to keep pushing it to go, quicker and quicker and keep competing in all these events, even though, stuff breaks or, like you said, the power steering, you could easily jump to another platform, but what is it that makes you keep pushing this one?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's, of course, right, it looked great. Can't, but, the all-wheel drive turbo aspect in autocross is really strong. The torque that you can throw at the engine. Of course, a little different story with transmission, but yeah. I think right now, like where I'm at, the car is probably 80% fully built. Like I'm still on 275 wide Hoosiers, and all at the national level, the tire sizes they have are like 315 to 335.
Huh.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm currently working on, drawing up fenders and trying to make them to fit a 315. There you go. There's another con. You can only fit a 245 under the fender.
Oh,
Everything
okay.
else, yeah, anything wider than a 245 has to go outside of the car. So then you gotta make something to cover it up.
Interesting.
But yeah, so not even on the wider tires yet. That's a plan in this off season. Like I said, stock intake manifold, stock exhaust manifold. The B2 HTA is a journal bearing turbo, and I want to go to a ball bearing turbo, so I have that instant response. Right now, my 1000cc injectors are maxed out at 24 psi boost, and I've got bigger injectors to go give some more power. So it seems like I'm at the point where there's still quite a bit to go.
I mean, that's good. Always leaves you some growing room.
Yep.
So you talked about your old red Eclipse too. Have you had any other Mitsubishis other than those two?
No. I guess those are the only ones I've ever had.
Okay.
Me and my buddy have a Eagle Summit, the van,
Heck yeah. Love
sitting
those
outside
things.
my garage right now. Yeah. At some point, we'll probably take the old engine that spun the rod bearing and maybe throw it in the van to get a little turbo all-wheel drive 4G63 Summit
There you go.
for fun, but any other projects.
That'd be a great car for fun. I'm not sure it could compete in serious autocross though.
yeah, definitely not autocross, but it'd be a nice red light car.
Right, yeah, for sure. And it
Catch people
definitely
off guard.
surprise people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, Kyle, if somebody out there is listening, they're thinking about getting an autocross, they go and see their local autocross, or even they go to the shootout and they watch it, but they're kind of scared or reluctant to get into it. What advice would you have them for a beginner to get started?
Yeah, honestly, autocross, it's probably got one of the lowest barriers to entry. You could just go do it. I mean, if you see, if you know you've got a local autocross group, then that's usually pretty easy. They've probably got a Facebook, they've probably got a website, or you can, crash one of their events and just show up and start talking to people. You'll find that autocrossers are very willing to help and will very quickly kind of take you under their wing, and it's really good for novices because there's so many people willing to help, because everybody's been there. It's a little awkward, walking up to a bunch of random people that you don't know, right? But you'll find out very quick that people are wanting to help, and the more people we can get into autocross, the better.
Heck yeah. Keep it alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kyle, do you have any goals for 2023 with this car?
Yeah, big ones. Got to get some big wins. So locally, autocross, I win my class, and they have two different kind of time groups. One of them's called raw time, which is everybody runs the fastest time you run. That's what your time is. And of course, so I can get the raw time wins locally, but then there's another part of autocross called PAX, P-A-X. And it's almost like you get a multiplication modifier depending on, at a national level, how competitive the cars are. So your more stock cars will, let's say they run a 40-second time, maybe their PAX time is going to be a 32-second time.
Huh, okay.
Whereas in mine, where I'm more heavily modified, if I run, in order to get a 32-second PAX time after you calculate it, my raw time may have to be 35 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a way you have a big, you can kind of rank everybody, and they try and use those multipliers to make up for modification.
Kind of evens the playing field.
Yep, exactly.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So the hard part about the class I'm in street mod is you have to run a really, really fast raw time because the cars are supposed to be really, really fast in order to get a good PAX time. So my goal is to try and make it that fast so locally I can get the raw time win and the PAX time win. But then, of course, also at more of a like they have regional events, call them national tours and pro solos. That's usually like 200 drivers, and they'll have them. For example, one will be in Toledo, and people will come from all around to race at Toledo. It's more of a national level event.
Okay.
So definitely gonna try and participate in more of those. And then, of course, big nationals, September. Try and drive a little better, have the car more prepared. And
where do they do the national autocross event at?
So that's in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's 1,300 drivers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's a really fun.
Did Evo win that last year? I was watching something.
Yeah. Dallas Cutler and his black Evo.
Okay.
That thing's wicked. A lot of fast people in the street mod class then.
Heck yeah. So, Kyle, do you have any long-term goals for this car? I mean, I know, it sounds like your short-term goals are pretty big. So, what are your long-term goals?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, maybe a couple years, get a podium finish at a national level. That would be pretty awesome. I think just continue to develop the car and then get it to a point where there's no big modification, right? That I can pull out the old excuse book on it. Oh yeah, I got this, and this I haven't done.
Yeah.
Get to the point where I have to say, I just gotta drive better. Which always a work in progress.
Right. Otherwise, it wouldn't be any fun.
Yep.
So, Kyle, you talked about it a little bit, but let's go over the events that you plan to attend in 2023. That way, if somebody is close by, they can come out and see this car in action.
Yeah. So, locally, we have, so our group is called CKRSCCA. So if you go on Facebook, you can look it up, and we've got all our events on there. And then, so that's for around me and like Lexington area. And then for the Louisville area of Kentucky, there's KYRSCCA. And so the local, they do, KYR has a lot of their events actually down at Bowling Green at the Corvette Museum track.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they go down there and rent out a big portion of their lot at the racetrack. So I'll be down there. Over here in my home region, we've got Georgetown, Kentucky. We have Bluegrass Stockyards. I mean, just the stockyards where they sell cattle, but they have a really nice big parking lot. So it's pretty recently built. We kind of got them early on and said, hey, give you some money, I'll just use your parking lot some days every now and then. But so locally, the Kentucky area, maybe a few Ohio events, and then the big ones, so in June, be in Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a national tour, through Indiana. July is Bristol's got a couple events in Tennessee. There's another one Toledo, Ohio in July. These are the bigger kind of national regional events.
Okay.
And of course September, Lincoln, Nebraska's Nationals is the first week of September. It's that Labor Day, the week after Labor Day weekend. And of course then the shootout is the week after that. So hopefully the car makes it through Nationals to show up the week after for the shootout.
You got a lot of driving on your hands.
Yeah, lots of driving. So I think it's about 7 of the bigger events, and then probably 20 or so smaller local events. So it should be a pretty busy season.
Heck yeah. Good.
That's the plan anyway. It's been down for a couple years, so it just got back up and running, what was it, middle of last year. So got to make up for it.
There you go. So Kyle, where can people see you in action on the internet? Is there a YouTube channel or some social medias you want to shoot out?
Yeah, so of course my Facebook is Kyle Gottschalk, and then Instagram every now and then I'll post something. It's just KT Gotts, KTGOTTS. I made a new little Facebook page for calling it GAP Performance, GA Performance. So I'll be trying to get things like the fender that I'm designing and making that fit a 315. I'm gonna try and put some of that stuff on there.
Heck yeah.
And then the YouTube is GA Performance as well.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try and I've been trying to record what I've been doing with the 3D printing this fender mold and trying to make a carbon fiber part out of it. And I got last week I pulled the part out that was not the best, but it came out of the mold and fixing some things, and we'll try again. But so all that type of stuff I'm going to try and document a little better. And of course DSMtuners.com. I'm on there. I think my handle's like 96 DSM FTW or something like that. I don't know why, but that's what it wound up being.
I was going to say, I do remember your handle ending in FTW.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know who made that, but it was a long time ago.
So Kyle, always give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who helped them get where they are, get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, give a shout out to a couple of my buddies, Dawson and Jacob. Getting the car where it is, or pushing the car where it is. They've had to help me push a couple of times. They've helped me with it. And of course, all the great vendors that we've got. You got Paul Bolt, you got Bobby with FIBA UK, Extreme PSI, DSMtuners.com. Definitely couldn't have been able to do it without them. The information you'll find on there is better than any Facebook post, so I would highly recommend getting on there. But yeah, just kind of everyone else who continues to make parts and try and keep the DSM community somewhat thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping our head above water now.
Yeah, I know. We just got to keep fighting.
Yep. All right, Kyle. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on here and telling your story. I hope that we can get some more DSMers out there interested in autocross or Mitsubishi enthusiasts at all. Even if you have a 3G and you want to come to the shootout, put it in the autocross. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah. I mean, the shootout, do a quick little recap on it. The shootout's super fun. The autocross section, we're trying to get more and more people. This last one was really good turnout. Max effort, super fun. I've actually not had that car on a drag strip until I decided to do max effort. So it was good to get a few runs and the autocross, and they add them together. So, yes, you just got to get out there and do it. Just sign up. If you got any questions, you could ask me, ask your local autocross club, send them a message on Facebook, wherever.
Yep. If you're too intimidated to come out to the shootout and drag race, which I understand, hey, just get in max effort.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's so autocross heavy, a drag car couldn't win it.
Yep.
All right, Kyle, thanks again, man, and I look forward to seeing your car in action.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.